It's amazing. I just received a text from a representative and the state senator in Oklahoma saying that there is a major battle going on, and transgender activists are actually manifesting like demons, like something out of The Exorcist, as a part of the protest. You won't believe this stuff is going out there. I think the good news is that the legislators actually winning the battle, and they're fighting the agenda for chemical castration of children. I think that, and Lori Lightfoot, you look back a week ago on her defeat, no one's really talked about what that tells you. It's all good news, people. Where we win, we have to engage the frontline battle, and I do think that engagement's going to make a difference. Speaking of this, I'm doing these airline flights now, traveling out of the country. Do you know that the airlines track you? And like you go to check on a price and go back and the price goes up, then the price goes up. Oh, I better go get the ticket. If you use ExpressVPN, you can beat the tech game. They literally manipulate these things so that it creates a bidding war on your business if you don't have protection. So what I want you to do is, once you go to lancewallnau.com/ExpressVPN, you want to be able to stay anonymous, protect your free speech, keep those goons from tracking you or manipulating you. Oh, you're back again checking out a price on this? We're just going to raise it $5 to create urgency. No, you could actually set it up so that it shows that you're in Europe or you're in the United States. And by the way, you can not only set it up so that it can't track your location, but I've got friends of mine that are like the Bahamas or out of the country, and they actually know how to use this to get American programming. You go to these other countries, it literally says, we don't have that program available. And here's what you do. You go to expressvpn.com/Lance. expressvpn.com/Lance. You won't regret it. Is it possible that it's that time of day for the Lance Wallnau Show, which I'm increasingly becoming aware of from my wife, mostly, who runs into people, that people are actually listening. Many of you are listening and looking for this daily update to be a source of hope and encouragement, which challenges me to eschew from my, shall we say, Ashkenazi Jewish inclination towards morbidity. You see, the world is actually increasing in its danger level. News is unreliable because it's slanted either by political bias through the corporations that control the 6 primary news and media outlets you listen to, or through the ignorance of people who simply can't pierce the fog. I mean, when I look at the Don Lemons in this world, I don't see an Illuminati-level conspirator. I see someone who just is not that bright. And here's another problem, because as a person who has a Christian audience, I suppose I should be never saying someone is not that bright, because it might offend the sensitivities of Christians. But you see, here again, we're fighting with one hand tied behind our back, because the ability to tell the truth, to speak the truth, to be honest about what's going on is one of the clarifying elements. It's the smelling salts that causes a few people to wake up and say, well, he's right. It's not like Don Lemon is actually breaking ground out there with research or something. These people are talking heads. They're empty suits. By the way, politicians, I remember David Lane said this to me once, and it was a very sobering realization. He helps elect a lot of conservatives to office. And he's one of those behind-the-scenes guys that you don't always hear about. He doesn't always trot out in front of a microphone, but he's a great writer, and I love reading his emails. And David said to me, all that an election is an empty suit filled by somebody that represents the collective interest of the donors who put that person in office. Or you could say it's an empty suit that represents the populist rage that put that person in office. The point being that leadership isn't creating something. Leadership in politics is the person designated to represent the interests of the most powerful, dominant voting bloc or money bloc that can push that person in. That's how Fetterman gets in. This guy's poor guy. I mean, there again, as a Christian, I can't hardly say what I want to say. I'm thinking it, and I know you're thinking it, but you can't say it. The man was like, remember Lurch from the Addams Family? Kind of leaned over at the door and come in and let you in. That was the kind of weird vibe I got from Fetterman. And in an age where media presentation is so vital to electability, where beauty and, Gavin Newsom's hair, and Ocasio-Cortez's eyes and teeth are like good enough for like 40% of the voting bloc to say, well, they're pretty. I like them. How can you pull off a senatorial election win with a guy who looks like he came out of the Addams Family and then talks like a guy who just, quite frankly, had his brain scrambled in a stroke? He still can't talk and he can't hear. And now he's checked himself into a hospital because of depression. As a Christian, my empathy, my sympathy, my instincts all go into the bedside of the man, to praying for him, to caring for him, to loving him. But as the other side has to be responsible, is this the guy you want flying your kids home on a TWA, or TWA doesn't exist anymore, on an Allegheny airline doesn't exist anymore, on an American Airlines flight? Is this the guy that you want doing surgery on your retina? Is this the guy that you want making major decisions on the well-being of your business? No. You don't confuse compassion with competence. So what am I saying? I'm trying to say that we live in this world where we have to constantly, me as a conscientious believer, I have to kind of weigh, is what I'm saying now necessary to say, beneficial to say, helpful to say, even if it's going to be truth-telling? Now, truth-telling, or the ability to see things in clear lanes of black and white and such, is helpful if you learn the proverb. Politicians aren't really there. They're empty suits filled by a body that represents the most powerful voting bloc interests that put them in office. Once you understand that, you see why the satanic Soros district attorneys in Chicago and in LA constantly are putting people out on the street that commit heinous crimes, and then they're out and then they go kill another person. It's like, meanwhile, this person, a judge let this person out, and they had done axe murders, and they were out on $500 bail for the weekend, and they did another axe murder.
This portion is too hot to handle for social media. Go to lancewallnau.com/podcast to listen to the entire show.
You look at that, and you wonder, how long can civilization survive? Well, American, Western, United States specifically. I think China's doing good because they don't put up with garbage like this. And this is another concern that I've got. And this is going somewhere, folks, and it's positive at its end, because I got up today and I said to myself, there's a great verse of the Apostle Paul. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are of good report, whatsoever things are faithful and encouraging, virtuous, think on these things. I'm trying to think positive vibes, positive thoughts, positive news. But I'm in an industry which is like pest control. I have to show you where the critters are. I have to show you where they're creeping around under the floorboards. We got to get some insecticide in there. And truth is the insecticide that exposes the vermin and the varmints that are crawling around behind the baseboard. And I'm talking about the demonic activity that is working its way into the minds of people. I got a private text today. I want to share this with you. This is just between you and me, right? Don't tell anybody else. Let me see if I can and bring this up. This text is from a representative in Oklahoma. I will warn my producer to edit the name out should I accidentally say the name, because I don't want to get this person in trouble. But they wrote to me something that you need to hear. This is a real, live, today piece of current event news going on at the time that you hear this broadcast. This is happening this month, this week, this season in Oklahoma. I just had the opportunity to watch Flashpoint where we were talking about transgender issues and the fact that this is spiritual warfare, that we're dealing with a demonic assault on our youth, our children. Now, let me say something here. Do you know that the number of transgenders that are in my age group, baby boomers, is like, 0.003 or something like that. The number of transgenders in your children that are 15 years old and younger, 20%. This is because the education system, social media, TikTok especially, under the control of Communist China, is redirecting traffic to destroy American youth. In China, you are always directed to education, to music, to science, to discipline, to study. And because they've made a decision, much like Russia did, that the United States and Western Europe, their great competitors, are self-destructing because of the moral decadence and decay of late-stage prosperity and freedom without morality, creating a self-destruct mechanism in Western civilization, manifest in the LGBTQ, especially transgender and queer acceptance and embrace in education, in media, in pop culture, and being pushed on the next generation. So they're fanning the flames on TikTok in China as part of their strategy. So your children are being directed into more and more bizarreness, and it's being firewalled off in China.
This portion is too hot to handle for social media. Go to lancewallnau.com/podcast to listen to the entire show.
The Bible says that there are things called sins of omission and sins of commission. Committing the sin is the obvious one. You're stealing, you're cheating, you're hurting. It's that sins of omission. It's the failure to use your voice when God gave you a voice, a failure to stand up for the oppressed when you could have, the failure to speak up or suffer loss because of a righteous cause you didn't want to become affiliated with. Do you know how many Christians are similar to the Pharisees in the days of Jesus who knew he was right, but he refused to identify with his message for fear of being put out of the synagogue, for fear of being ostracized at the country club, for fear of being misunderstood or mislabeled or smeared by association with some controversial right-wing figure? Cowardice is what it's called. Selfishness is what it is. God has given you freedom. Use your freedom. Use your voice. Use your money. I grieve when I hear my friends tell me, well, I met with these people that wanted to join and work with us the other day, but the first thing they said was, I just want to make sure, is this a political thing? It's all political, folks, because the governments of this world are becoming more and more taken over by the spirit of Antichrist. And the government shall be upon his shoulders, Jesus. And the two governments are in collision right now, the kingdom of God and the kingdoms of this world. And the kingdoms in collision are going to touch every area of your life. Think about those airplanes. You've got to get involved with education because it's flying your children. And somebody wants to control what they see, what they hear, what they are exposed to. And the pure peer pressure that they go through. I was so grieved when I think back. I never should have made my kids go to college. When they would come back and they'd have to do an evening of celebrating personal courage on campus. I remember one of my sons, well, what was going on at school? Well, personal evening of courage. Well, it was a gay kid that came out of the closet, and of course, it was all premeditated, scripted by the school, that all the students would celebrate the courage of young whoever that was coming out of the closet, affirming to everybody, this is the evidence of courage, as opposed to the evidence of confusion. And you know who the real Courage Award should go to? It should go to the conservative that dares to identify as a believer in Christ, who actually believes in personal responsibility, doesn't like politics, isn't necessarily a Republican or a Democrat, but cares about legislation and law and culture and shows up. Those kids in the minority, despised on campuses, that's courage. Well, there's good news, and I want to give it to you straight. The good news is you can handle the truth out there. And that if you've lasted this long with me, this many years, or if this is your first broadcast, you know, we do a deep dive surgical on whatever we talk about. We don't just play on the surface. We go under the system to try to see what's really going on. Now, Lori Lightfoot lost her reelection in Chicago in the mayoral election. Now, you understand how big this is. Lightfoot is the first Chicago mayor in 40 years. Chicago, it's like it's under some kind of a spirit since Al Capone and the gangster era. Cook County has always been like one of the big corrupt political areas. You're never going to get, I don't know, Chicago is to Illinois what Philadelphia is to Pennsylvania. It's a guaranteed corrupt political basket. But even in the corrupt political basket, they fight with each other. It's kind of like the Crips and the Bloods. They do fight for which Democrat of priority is going to prevail in the city of Chicago, which is why it's interesting to me that Lightfoot, who, I mean, we're not allowed to talk about this, but she was ticking off the box of minority status, black, lesbian status, check. So she's running. She got elected with 50 precincts out of 50 voted for her. So she hit all the right progressive boxes. But she just lost seriously. She came in third with only 16.6% of the vote. Now, the former CEO of Chicago Public Schools, Paul Vallis, received 35% of the vote. So I don't know that the Chicago Public Schools are exactly what I would want to put back in office. Do you think the public schools in Chicago, if I did a real forensic on there where the crime is in the streets, you think it's not affecting the schools? Nevertheless, it's the teachers' unions, people. Think about this. Unions. Now, the Cook County Commissioner, he's cooking some books. He received 20%. So no candidate received more than 50%. There's going to be a runoff. I would say, and true to form, I think Lightfoot probably complained that the loss is to a great extent all race and misogyny. nobody ever loses, even in these elections on the left. They accuse each other. This is almost hilarious in a way. This is the leftists accusing the other leftists of being intolerant and voting against her because of race. I don't know why it's funny, but it strikes me as funny. Now, so how the media covered it, it really didn't. But I want you to see it's a sign that people are coming to their senses because of crime, because they won't put up with policies that don't work. It takes a while for Americans to get there. But the greatest hope I have, the greatest desire I have is that the system can withstand the stress of the experiment in democracy so that when the people see how lousy their leadership is, they start to percolate. The mechanisms are there to save America if we can only have the truth prevail in the public square. Speaking of public square, there's something very exciting happening right now. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/public SQ. Early on, I identified this. You guys will know this. You track with me. I met with the owner of this, a young man, a millennial, who said, "Why are we giving our money to woke corporations? I'm going to create an app, Lance." He met me right here at my studio. I'm going to create an app, and we're going to put that app out there, and people with values, Christians, patriots, conservatives, even just healthy independents or libertarians, whoever, can identify who in their local neighborhood is doing business that they want to do business with based on shared values. And if you got a business, put your business on. It's a free app. And drop a pin down on your business. I don't care if you're a bookkeeper, a massage therapist, work at a daycare center, or you're going to be like you're in high school and you're going to do some babysitting or something. Put yourself out there as a business on the map, because 50,000 businesses, probably 100,000 right now, have been identified, and $200 million of big investment money is going into this slingshot to take down woke corporations. So that when you sign up at lancewallnau.com/public square, by the way, Wallnau is spelled WALLNAU, Hard to find out there, I'm sure, if you don't know how to spell it. Go to lancewallnau.com/public square, and you yourself can get access to the app, download it for free, find out where the businesses are you want to give your money to, and plop your flag down on your own business if you want traffic to come to you. That's the power of the internet, and that's the beauty of where we are in America right now. We can do these things. All right, this is Lance Wallnau signing off. And remember, we are winning. It is a battle. This is what Nehemiah's project was all about. We're surrounded by hostiles, but we're rebuilding the wall. We are rebuilding the wall. And that wall is going to hold, and it's going to hold till we recover this American experiment. Talk to you again tomorrow. God bless.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.